You mentioned Tuesday, it's primary election day in Florida, and the race for the state's 19th Congressional District specifically is shaping up to be a wild one.
Yeah, it's a 10-way race filled with carpetbaggers from the Midwest, the South, New York, all running with the goal of filling Representative Byron Donalds' seat in the Fort Myers area. He is running, of course, for governor. We spoke earlier with Greg Giroux, senior reporter for Bloomberg Government, on all of this.
Greg, it's great to see you. Welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend. I want to start with the 19th District, the clown car, if you will. As you write, 6 of the 10 GOP candidates have run for House seats in other states. One is on his 7th run for Congress. 2 are Hill veterans attempting comebacks after leaving under a cloud. And 2 have prison records and pardons from President Donald Trump. Now, he just weighed in on this race. Will his endorsement matter?
It usually does. I mean, President Trump's endorsement, his endorsees usually win Republican primaries, not all the time, but most of the time. And in this case, he endorsed Catalina Lauf, who is a conservative activist who served in the Commerce Department during Trump's first term. She's one of the 6 candidates who have run for Congress in other states. She ran at least a couple of times in Illinois, including against another candidate in this race who sought that seat as well.
All right, so she knows how to run. That's good to know. What's interesting is, by getting an endorsement from President Trump, Greg, does that give her an advantage? I'm just curious, with quite a full plate here of candidates wanting the seat.
Yeah, it usually does. The president sometimes can be a cautious endorser. If there's no clear front runner, he'll sometimes stay out of primaries. But in this case, he's endorsing in a race that has no real dominant front runner here. There's really only one candidate among the top candidates with strong local ties to Southwest Florida. But the president is deciding to endorse a former aide here. It does underscore he prizes loyalty, people who worked for him before. So it is a little bit of a risky endorsement in that there is no clear front runner here. But this is certainly going to give Lauf a boost in a crowded race where there's no runoff, and a winner could probably win with something like in the mid-20s.
Wow. And of course, the winner of this primary is likely to take the seat, right? I mean, this is Florida we're talking about. This seat currently held and being vacated by Byron Donalds, who we're talking to this weekend. Greg, pretty interesting moment for him. Endorsed by President Trump. Will he be the next governor of Florida?
Well, it'll certainly be the Republican nominee. The big question will be, does Florida, which has trended very Republican lately, does it become more politically competitive in a more difficult political environment for Republicans? Byron Donalds probably will win his contested Republican primary with the president's backing. It looks like he'll go on to the general election. He would probably face Democrat David Jolly, a former House member and a former Republican. Polls show a somewhat close race between Donalds and Jolly, but it's very, very difficult for Florida Democrats. They'd have to stanch some of the bleeding they've suffered there the last decade or so.
You know, Greg, one of the things I'm curious about, we're going to get into the money and who's backing who and whether that gives anybody in Florida an advantage. But so far, we've had a lot of primaries. You've been covering them on Balance of Power, Joe. I mean, what are they telling us about what might happen come November? Is there a clear messaging? Is it the economy that often is what matters to voters? What is it?
Yeah, the economy is usually number one, and I think that's also the case this year. We're hearing a lot more from candidates and from voters about affordability, about the high cost of living, from gas prices to utilities to housing. And I think the common message I'm hearing from a lot of candidates from both parties is send a fighter to Washington who will work to lower your costs. I'm hearing that message over and over again. In the primaries we've held thus far, I think one kind of a common theme is that there's a lot of energy on the Democratic side. In primary after primary in states and districts, we're seeing Democratic participation much higher than before and certainly outpacing Republican participation. The big question will be, can the Democrats, does that extrapolate forward to the November election? It is a midterm election year. As our viewers know, the president's party almost always loses ground in Congress in midterm election years. And this is shaping up to be a very challenging year for House and Senate Republicans defending their slim majorities.
So, Greg, bring it back to the 19th District. The economy, we've had some stories on the Bloomberg about being more expensive living there than even New York City. So things have changed in terms of the economic landscape. I am curious, is the economy a part of every platform of this quite an array of candidates who are running for the 19th District?
Yeah, it really is. And we hear a lot in Florida about insurance rates as well. That's very much a burning issue, including in this southwestern Florida district that has Naples and Cape Coral. In Republican primaries, though, we're seeing, I think, including this one, we're seeing, I think, less about specific issues and more about running in concert with President Trump. I think even after President Trump endorsed Catalina Lauf for this seat, we'll continue to see in the waning days of this primary just the Republican candidates running very much as close to President Trump and his policies. So we're seeing a lot more pro-Trump messaging from candidates in Republican primaries, and we're seeing a lot of specifics on the policy issues.
This is, of course, why we're having this conversation about Democratic socialists emerging in races around the country. Look no further than Michigan, some really important swing states, Minnesota. But Greg, there's one issue that brings my world and Carol's worlds together. We collide on the issue of data center, which a year or two ago was the best thing that might happen to your neighborhood. And now it has become such a flashpoint that even in Florida, Republicans are arguing about this. Byron Donalds has his own legislation he talked about to control the impact of data centers. How will that impact some of the outcomes here in the Sunshine State?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about more and more about data centers and AI in campaign messaging, including in Florida. It doesn't always break down by, it doesn't really fall neatly along kind of an ideological left-right spectrum. Hearing a lot of, concerns about data centers, about local control, about do they or do they not contribute to high utility costs? Do they take up a lot of space? We're also hearing on the other side a lot of arguments that this is a war that we can't, that the U.S. can't lose to China. So a lot of messaging on data centers and AI that I've heard in past campaigns. It's definitely a major, one of the major issues in this campaign.
All right, so just to wrap up, 30 seconds here, Greg, who's got the edge here?
I think a lot of candidates were bunched near the top, but I'll tell you, President Trump's endorsement of Catalina Lauf will probably make her the front runner in this race, just because Trump's endorsement, while it doesn't always lead to victory for the supported candidate, it usually does. And it's going to bring, some conservative activist energy, help with fundraising. It certainly will drive favorable media attention, certainly among conservative media outlets in Florida's 19th district.